Welcome into the Thunder Basketball Universe presented by COOP Ale Works. 82 games in the books, but the season is not over yet. No siree. The Thunder has secured a spot in the play-in tournament. And last time we talked to you guys, we were out in Golden State. We were out in San Francisco talking to Michael Cage. The Thunder had yet to play the Utah Jazz. The Thunder won that game. And then the day after, on April 8th, I believe, the Dallas Mavericks lost, which gave the Thunder their spot secured in the play-in tournament. And so the Thunder just recently, last night, to be specific, played the Memphis Grizzlies. And it was a little bit of a different lineup. Because the Thunder had a spot secured, they rested their usual starters. No Shea, no Josh, no J-Dub, no J-Will, and no Lou Dort. But the guys that went out there in that game against the Grizzlies, boy, did they shine, and they walked away with a 15-point win. And now the Thunder, ending their regular season on a high note, have a lot to look forward to the play-in. And so to help break all of this down, we brought in our good friend, TV play-by-play, Chris Fisher, who was sidelined for all 82 games this season. I mean, almost.
We got to give credit to my man, Nick Gallo, over there. He had a couple of fill-in performances. That's right. Talk about being ready to go. My man Gallo over here. He had his suit and tie ready to go for those TV games. That one after Christmas. That's right. I think I got sick a little bit in January, but I can always count on you guys to step up.
Hey, it's a long and grueling season. Really At some point, everybody's going to go down. And just like the team, we got to pick up for each other, and we all fit in where we can.
That's why we got a deep roster, man. Right. We got each other's back.
I don't think that people realize until you actually do it and you experience it, how long an 82-game season is. And just the grind of it, the ups and downs, the travel, the plane rides, the lack of sleep, like it is long and it is relentless. It's why everybody always looks forward to the All-Star break, why everybody looks forward to the second half of the season, and why you look forward to the playoffs, because it's like this refresher of energy and you look forward to it. It's what you've been building towards. So really happy that everyone's able to kind of experience this, especially after the last couple of years.
This is going to be such a new experience for this young Thunder team. And it's been a whole season full of new experiences, honestly. Just kind of looking back over this 82-game season, looking back even at the first 20 games of the season to where this team is now. I mean, the growth, the lessons, the experiences. Isaiah Joe wasn't playing in the first 20 games of the season, really, and now he is just a fixture in the rotation. What has this been like looking back and seeing where this team is now?
So I kind of looked at it from a preparation standpoint and from a broadcaster standpoint. When I went back and thought about going into a game in October and November, my thought process was, who is going to be playing for the other team? Because there was a perception around the league that playing the Oklahoma City Thunder in October and November was a perceived night off. Not for me, not for the people around this team, but for people that were playing us around the league. And so you would go up against a team and I would be preparing to play that they would play basically some of their frontline starters, and all of a sudden they're not. And it was because, well, they felt like they were going to come into Oklahoma City and get a victory, or whether we were on the road, they would get a victory. And to see that evolution and to see sort of the mindset around the league shift to what the team brought every single night, which was competitiveness, energy, fight until the end, to then being a legitimate threat to winning games and then putting themselves in a position right there toward the end to get that 10 spot, is just an incredible testament to them as a young team, the work that they put in, the growth, the togetherness, and just seeing them go step by step over the course of 6 months and putting themselves in this position, to me, is remarkable.
Yeah, I mean, this team went from a bottom 10 offense in the first 2 months of the season to a top 10 offense in the calendar year 2023. And so, Chris, to your point, a lot of what teams were coming in expecting in the first couple months of the season was actually very different from what they came in understanding in those matchups. And we talked to all of these opposing coaches before games, and the tone shift was not necessarily on the effort in terms of how they talked about how the Thunder play, but more on the execution stuff of the things that they really had to worry about. In the beginning of the season, so much of opposing coaches' worries was just about, okay, this Thunder team plays hard and they play to the final buzzer. In the second half of the year, it was, we got to watch out because they live in the paint. They hammer people on turnovers. You know, all of these things that we've come to witness over the course of the year. And so I think it was really cool the way that the Thunder ended this season as well, where you get The guys, they go and they win a tough road game against a division opponent in a game that they really had to have. And then they come home and the guys that haven't played a ton of minutes, they went out there and they played to the same style. They racked up 30 assists and got the job done.
You guys, impressingly, were in every single one of those pregame media availabilities on the road in particular. And that's when Mark, I think, was asked probably the majority of his questions outside the market.
Yeah.
And almost nightly, and I'm sure that you guys can attest to this, somebody would say, what's been the biggest key to the jump?
Right.
Right? Like, what has been the key to you guys basically going from a team that missed the playoffs last year and having the number 2 pick to all of a sudden, here you are announcing yourself somewhat in the Western Conference? I mean, every single night we were on the road, it seemed like he was answering that question.
Yeah, for sure.
In one way or another. And his answer always went back to the same core thing, which was it's really just a cumulative growth that we've seen from this group dating back to really last season and the season before. These guys getting a lot of cohesion, a lot of continuity from the core group, and then each and every game taking advantage of it, using those experiences and those lessons. And what you're seeing now is a result of following that approach season after season. And we saw that exact same approach in game number 82. And we talked about it to Coach Dagnall before the game. He said that it's the last game of the season. We're sitting our starters, but it's still part of this 82 game season. And so we're going to approach it with the exact same mentality that we have all season. These guys are going to get a chance to take advantage of some meaningful minutes out there to get a really good burn in. These guys played over 40 minutes in this game, but also showcase that their ability to execute and still stick to the game plan and style of play that this team has worked so hard to establish all season long. That's exactly what we saw from this group. You mentioned the 30 assists. This team also scored 60 points in the paint against the Memphis Grizzlies, who are also a pretty paint-heavy team as well. So it was a really, really good matchup. We saw a lot of different guys get their shine. This was the last time we were going to get a chance to see Jared Butler and Olivier Sarr, the Thunder's two-way players who are not eligible for postseason action. So this is kind of their send-off for the season, and they showed out as well.
A great reward also for these guys that had been cheering on their teammates for the last couple weeks who are more solidly in the rotation. But you see a guy like Trey Mann, first career triple-double. Everybody's flying off the bench when he's soaring to the air for that one-handed punch dunk that he just hammered on the Grizzlies. And, you know, I think there was such great vibes there and a great opportunity for the Thunder to use those 48 minutes. They're so precious and valuable. I mean, how many thousands and thousands of people wish that they could get a minute on an NBA court, and here these guys are, you know, able to soak up those 48 minutes. And we've seen guys use that extended playing time in the G League to actually come back with a better rhythm after that.
They might have secured the 10 spot in the play-in, but when you mention guys like Jared Butler and Olivier Sarr, there's nothing guaranteed about their NBA career.
That's true.
Like, this is their lifehood on the line, these
Yeah.
minutes, and trying to show out and go out there and play. And we've seen that with the Thunder playing other teams on the road who are kind of playing with a looseness, as Mark Dagnall likes to say. But really happy to see those guys go out, get a chance to go up against sort of Memphis's G League guys who were coming up. And that was fun to see. And Jared Butler, who we didn't get an opportunity to see a ton over the course of the season, but big minutes for him, and Olivier Sarr, who's been with the organization for a couple of years. You like to see those guys go out and, like you say, execute and get the job done.
We talked a little bit about Trey Mann, his first career double-double, first career triple-double as well. The man scored 24 points, had 12 rebounds, 12 assists. And we talked to him, obviously talked to Coach Dagnall after the game, and there was a lot of questions about, you know, how good did it feel? Obviously, your role has been kind of inconsistent this season. You haven't necessarily had, you know, the season that you wanted. How good did it feel? And one thing that Coach Dagnall pointed out that I thought was actually a really good point was that it's kind of an optical illusion when you look at Trey and the season that he had this year. Trey is still a better player at the end of this season than he was at the start of this season and at the end of last season. And that's a testament to Trey for how he's approached his season. But it's also a good reminder that these guys, they make the most of minutes, and it's not just minutes on the floor, but it's minutes in the practice facility and minutes in the weight room and watching film to make sure that they're still growing and amplifying their game. And Trey's game and this is kind of a good microcosm of that, I thought.
The thing that has stuck out to me about Trey Mann over the course of the season, because he has been very candid that it wasn't the type of season that he expected coming in after the strong off season, but watching him go through those struggles And watching him respond to those struggles is what stands out to me, because he got multiple G League assignments and was like, hey, anything that's going to help me become a better basketball player. And that, to me, as he's trying to prove himself in the NBA, is a pretty mature answer. Like he's got other guys that are in his draft class that are probably getting more minutes, maybe getting more playing time, more of an opportunity, more in the rotation. He's not, but he's like, I get it. I know I need to go down. I need to improve. And if that's the way for me to get back up with my guys, then I'm willing to do it. And that happened multiple times this year. That wasn't like a one-time thing in December. It happened multiple times, got out of the rotation a little bit, had some DNPs. But his mindset, to me, is a mindset that is going to allow him to figure it out over time. And
he would be very far from the first NBA role player to have some struggles in their first 2 or 3 seasons of their career. I'm not comparing these guys at all, but a guy like JJ Redick, who ended up becoming probably one of the most consistent veteran presences as a role player you could find in the NBA in the later stages of his career.
Leave it to Nick to bring up a Duke
of
shot.
Course,
of
got
course.
To. But he
had
struggled.
to just did. So subtle. So subtle with the JJ Redick throw in.
I met him the other day. We had that game in New Orleans, and he was great. He was really nice.
Did you bring up Duke?
I did not.
Oh,
I did not.
Okay.
I did bring up that I grew up in Durham, though.
Oh my gosh.
Instant connection.
Yeah,
Truly.
of course. He struggled those first couple years in Orlando, and he really, he did not find his footing until a little bit later in his career. And as a player like Trey is trying to not be a one-trick pony, but be a guy that can be a complete player, and a guy that's not going to get played off the floor defensively, or is not going to be able to be kind of sagged out against because he's more of an on the ball guy as opposed to a catch and shoot guy. Like, these are all things that he's got to work out to kind of round those edges of his game. And there's going to be some steps backwards before a big leap forward.
And Trey's story this season is kind of the story of a lot of guys on the roster. You think of a guy like Alexei Pokuševski, who obviously encountered an injury and working his way back, Jeremiah Robinson Earl. All of these guys have this collective mentality of I'm just gonna try to do what I can to become a better basketball player, regardless of what adversity or hurdles have been thrown my way this season. And seeing the guys still be able to grow and take advantage of their opportunities and see where they are now at game day 82 versus where they were at the start of the season, that's been really fun to watch for me personally.
Yeah, I think, a guy like Ousmane Dieng is another great example of you could think about how a rookie could, at the beginning stages of the season when, he's not getting as many minutes and he's playing for the G League and he hurts his wrist, and it could just feel like, oh my gosh, what's happening to my first season of my NBA career? And by the end of the season, things have actually come around for him, and he's been back in the rotation more. He's able to put up a great night on Sunday for Easter Sunday, and this is a guy who heading into next year has so much more under his belt than he did at the beginning of the season, and is going to be able to start out much further ahead than he did this year.
What about Jalen Williams, J-Dub? How did he not hit that theoretical rookie wall?
When Michael Cage posed that question on the broadcast yesterday, I shot a little comment into our producer Steve Melton's ear, and I said he actually hit the rookie wall when he got elbowed in the eye the first game of the season.
Game 3, game number 1.
And that was just enough to be like, okay, bang, I'm here. This is real.
That helped him. He's like, that really helped me because the NBA is unpredictable. These games are unpredictable, but it was like hey, I just got smacked in the face. Welcome to the NBA.
Right. So maybe that was it. Maybe that was his wall.
Maybe.
Lesson learned there. But it all boils down to the approach that these guys have had all season long, the collective approach of the team. And one thing we've heard from Coach Dagnall all season long was that getting to the play-in tournament is great as long as we get there our way and the way we want to, and we follow the same approach. And that is exactly what has earned them a spot in the play-in tournament. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're talking the play-in tournament and previewing the Thunder's game against the New Orleans Pelicans. Stick around. We'll be right back.
COOP Ale Works is the proud sponsor of Thunder Basketball Universe. Brewers of the fan favorites F5 IPA and 99-calorie Ice Chest IPA. You'll find those and many more COOP beers at retailers across Oklahoma. Learn more at CoopAleWorks.com.
We've used the word new experience a lot, and it's apropos for this very young Thunder team, youngest in the NBA. And it's also apropos because the play-in tournament itself is fairly new in the NBA. This is just the third season that this has been around. It started in the NBA bubble in the year 2020. We all remember that year. And it is now grown. It has now been adopted fully by the NBA. And so the Thunder now has a shot in the play-in tournament. So this team, which we learned after the game had ended, we were all waiting around watching the Minnesota Timberwolves and their game against the New Orleans Pelicans.
That game had no drama, by the way. No drama.
Yeah, just
it
easy,
looked like
smooth,
if you were just watching the box score, which
Right.
was what I was doing.
No, of course.
Yeah. If you were just watching the box score, because I was still live on television in post-game with Nancy, and we were trying to figure out if we would have time to actually announce who the Thunder would be playing on television. And we finally did. It took the final segment of that game because that game went down to the wire. But the New Orleans Pelicans lost that game, so the Thunder will play the Pelicans in New Orleans on Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Central Time. That game is going to be aired exclusively on ESPN. And so the play-in tournament has a lot of moving parts, really. So the Thunder could be going in a lot of different directions after this game, but this is going to be a very, very valuable opportunity for the youngest team in the NBA to get a chance at some postseason basketball.
Well, first of all, speaking of the play-in, the NBA and Adam Silver and their offices in New York must have been loving this because on the final day of the regular season, you had seeds 6 through 9, essentially 5 through 9 that were undecided.
Yeah.
And the 5th ended up going to the Clippers. The 9th ended up going to the Pelicans. The Pelicans could have gone all the way up to number 6 had they won that game and had the chips fallen in their direction. So great stuff in terms of outcome drama on the last day of the regular season. And the Thunder obviously had that 10th spot. But this young team is going to get a great opportunity, much like the Pelicans had last year. Remember, the Pelicans were in the 9-10 play-in, ended up beating the San Antonio Spurs, ended up beating their next opponent, the LA Clippers. They got that 8th spot, ended up going 6 games with the Phoenix Suns. That's valuable experience. Throw it back a couple more years. Memphis Grizzlies ended up being one of those teams that were able to play their way into the playoffs. So this is a great, great opportunity for this young team that's been playing important games down the stretch. They've been playing important games themselves. They've been playing important games against their opponents, who obviously had plenty on the line in terms of seeding. We've seen arenas have a little buzz to them. We've seen Paycom Center have a little buzz to it. But this is going to be a whole nother level because the Pelicans have a little bit of experience themselves, having played in this last year, having guys like CJ McCollum, who, of course, has been in the Western Conference Finals. So this is all going to be new and fresh, although SGA did get a little first-round taste back in his rookie year with the Clippers. But for the majority of this Thunder team, nobody has played in a playoff-like environment, even though playing is not technically the playoffs, but it's going to be single elimination, which feels like the playoffs.
Right.
It does, And, the NBA has not had a lot of single elimination. I mean, ever. That's not
the closest thing to the NCAA tournament you'll get in the NBA.
True. Right. And, besides a Game 7, which is something that Shea and Lou have been a part of, nobody else on this roster has been anything like this except for the NCAA tournament. So, might be leaning on some of that experience as well, but also just fascinating to see, how does the Thunder approach this situation? This is the most time that they've had to prepare for an opponent all season. 2 days. They've had scouts looking at these, handful of teams that are 3 teams that they really had a chance to play. They found out it's going to be New Orleans. Practice today. Going to practice again tomorrow. Mark Daigneault laid out to us that they really went full bore into the game plan stuff today. Right. They'll do a little bit more tomorrow. And then, as they got closer to the game, they're actually going to pull back a little bit and make it more about them and, how they execute their stuff, less full-on detail about what's going on in New Orleans. And I think maybe that base layer of what they got initially can help them and then really be focused on what truly matters, which is the competitive level, and really bringing it on Wednesday.
And I think the interesting layer to all of this is that this gives the Thunder, the youngest team in the NBA, an opportunity to learn a little bit something about themselves too. But something that we talked to Coach Daigneault about today in practice was, obviously this is a new experience for all but 2 players on your team. How do you draw on, making sure that the guys are ready for this? And he pointed out, we've been playing in games all season long that have had these high-level distractions that you have to weed out. I mean, just look at the game in LA where LeBron became the all-time scoring leader. That was probably the grandest scale of every seat in that arena was packed. nobody was looking at you. Nobody cared about your performance as a team. Everybody was against you, essentially. And you had to block all of that out and make sure you buckled down and took care of business. And there have been several examples of that throughout the season. And up to now, the Thunder has a few of those examples now, a few of those games where they can draw upon in this sort of scenario, which is obviously going to be different. It's going to have a different flavor to it, but it's not going to be the first time the Thunder's going to have to really be disciplined, focus in, and drown out some distractions.
Well, the only way to get experience is by getting experience.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
You have to go out and do it. And to your point about them playing all these close games, it feels like since the All-Star break, in that overtime game, the first game after against Utah, it feels like every game has been like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, it's not going to be, like it will be on Wednesday night against the Pelicans, where every arena wasn't sold out and, every fan wasn't into it like they're going to be into it on Wednesday night. But there's still pressure involved in those games because you have to go out and perform.
But I mean, that game in Chase Center in San Francisco was a playoff environment.
Yes.
I mean, that
They needed that game.
Right. And that game alone is the type of experience that the fact that this Thunder team, being the second youngest team in NBA history with its age profile, the fact that it was even getting those types of experiences at this point in the development process is incredible. It's one less year that the Thunder is having to wait to get these types of experiences. Next year, if they're fortunate enough to be in some of these situations again, they'll already have this under their belt. So you're just playing with house money at this point.
I want to pose a question because both of you have experienced like true playoff environments. You've called a game in the playoff atmosphere. You've been around this team for over a decade now. I have yet to be in this sort of, because the season I came
your experience
was
too,
the
Paris.
bubble year. So that game 7, I was here in Oklahoma City watching on the Jumbotron.
Paris did it. Paris caused
You're
the
welcome.
bubble down.
You're welcome. So just for those who might not understand, we keep talking about a playoff atmosphere, a playoff environment. What's different? Obviously, I assume louder. I assume more intense. But can you put a finger on it? Can you describe it a little bit for those who might not know?
I would say 2 things. Level of engagement on the court, which is significantly higher from everybody who's got a jersey on, everybody who's coaching that game, and physicality. Yeah, those 2 things, mental engagement and physicality, are ratcheted up to a whole nother level. And then you throw in all those other factors: atmosphere, road, fans, loudness, arenas, pressure, all that other stuff that just sort of adds to it. But from a game standpoint, player to player, full scouting report, full engagement, and full physicality.
I would just say the weight that each possession takes on and each sequence takes on, and there's an aura in the building around those moments. And when a 6-0 run happens, or there's a turnover that leads to a run out and a fast break, there's just such a different air to when that stuff goes down. And when there's dynamics that are taking place in the game. I mean, I'll never forget some of these sequences where NBA teams in playoff basketball, they would run the exact same play 8 times in a row because it had worked. And it's like, then this whole dynamic shapes around this one action. It's, can this team defend that action better this time than they did the previous time? Yeah. And the way that teams execute, it's just there's so much more weight and so much more attention. The way that you're talking about, Chris, engagement, there's that level of engagement from the crowd too, which in a regular season environment, is enjoying the amenities a little bit more.
Gal, you have experienced some playoff baseball recently,
Yes.
obviously with your Phillies, and I'm sure what comes to mind is every pitch in a baseball game feels important.
Yeah.
Every single pitch feels important because one pitch, a guy hits it out in the whole series, the whole game changes,
right?
The whole series changes, all the momentum changes, and next thing you know, either you're in or you're out. I mean, that's kind of what it feels like because of the importance of every single one of the possessions that you're talking about.
And in an NBA playoff series, there's at least sort of the comfort of knowing that it's a 7-game series, so that any of these sequences that don't go your way or that do go your way, you have an opportunity. There's always a way to come back.
It's a little more forgiving.
I mean, how many times have we seen over the course of the time with the Thunder a game 1 of a series? I mean, I think about the series with San Antonio years ago where OKC got blasted in the game 1, comes back and turns around and wins game 2 down in San Antonio, or being down the year the Thunder went to the finals, being down 2-0 to San Antonio and coming back home, having to regroup and then wiping the floor with them 4 straight games to head to the NBA Finals. These things can change. What makes this so crazy is it's a one-shot deal.
Yeah.
And if you have this sequence where, you pick up 5 team fouls in the first 4.5 minutes of the third quarter, and suddenly you're playing behind the 8 ball for the last, 8 minutes of that quarter, it's a totally different environment that has just been created around that. And the cool thing is the whole arena is like into it and it's understanding the dynamic of that, where in a regular season game, that's probably not registering.
And you talk about the fan engagement, and I feel like we've gotten a little bit of a taste of that over the past maybe week or so, and especially coming home from that final road trip of the season, Golden State, Utah, and then getting off that plane here in Oklahoma City to a crowd of Thunder fans. That was the first taste of just like this season. Okay, all right, this is cool. This is cool. This is the fan engagement. This is what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean that's so beautiful to see that, and guys getting back at 2:30 in the morning, and
we were an hour late landing.
As many cell phones as were out on the other side of the fence where the fans were, there were just as many out from the Thunder players. We're all taking selfies. They wanted to, it just really soak up the moment. And I thought it was really cool that on Sunday, again, we're talking about this uncertain scenario here. Like the Thunder players recognized that might have been the last game at Paycom Center this season, and so all the guys that weren't playing, they went out into the crowd and they signed autographs for like 30 minutes and really, made sure that they gave back in that way and showed the appreciation for just the connection between the city and the team.
It's been so fun these past few games, really all season long, especially these last few games, just seeing that level of connection between the fans and the players. The players feel it. Don't you worry. We're around them every single time. And they know, they feel your love, and they're really, really, really keen on reciprocating that. And so this next opportunity for OKC going to be very, very valuable. Really quick, last thing. We're playing the New Orleans Pelicans. We've seen this team 4 times this season. The Thunder won the last meeting, lost the first 3, and we have gotten a different flavor of the Pelicans really every single time the Thunder has played them, whether it's Brandon Ingram out for the Pelicans or CJ McCollum. We've gotten a little bit of a different taste. So really quick, let's do a quick preview of what the Thunder can expect going into Smoothie King Center.
Gal, I'll start with the Thunder offense. And
you're usually a defense guy, Chris.
Wow.
I can't believe you're going offense.
Yeah. We
now
playing basketball, and now Chris.
I feel like I'm betraying my moral compass here. Truly betraying my moral compass. You know what? Forget it.
He always has the last word, and he's like, "Oh, everyone wants to talk offense. I'm going defense." He loves it.
Facts. That is true. Somebody's got to anchor the defense on the broadcast crew. It might as well be me.
You're playing drop coverage for us there on those Taco Bell takes. You're sitting there back at the rim. You're like, I'm gonna make up for all of you guys' mistakes, being worried about trying to leak out.
Well, Paris is drawing up plays on her laptop. Cage is dreaming about his 3-point shooting
and popcorn.
And popcorn. Gallo wants to run the fast break, and I'm like, well, who's gonna draw up the defense here?
Right.
So it might as well be me. Okay, you're right, Gallo. Now, the Pelicans without Zion Williamson still have a very potent offense, and an offense that we have seen can be capable of beating the Thunder, most notably because of CJ McCollum and Brandon Ingram. They are 2 shot makers at a lot of different levels. McCollum, obviously, he's got playoff experience going back to his days with the Portland Trail Blazers, getting to the Western Conference Finals. You can't let him heat up.
Right.
He's a rhythm shooter. Take him out of his rhythm. Don't let him get going on threes. Don't let him build up that confidence, because he can put up 40 on you and you wouldn't even know it. So try to get up in him on the perimeter. Don't let him get to his spots. Brandon Ingram single-handedly beat the Thunder in a game earlier this year at Paycom Center because he shot over the top of Lou Dort. Thunder are going to probably throw multiple guys at him, but he is a shot creator at 6'9", who can do it from anywhere on the floor. And without Zion, he's become more of a creator on offense.
Right.
He's got a career high in assists. He can distribute the basketball, and he can shoot the basketball. And he's one of those mid-range inside 3-point guys. He's a 3-level scorer. And so I expect the Thunder to throw a bunch of different defensive players at him, whether that's J-Dub, whether that's Dort. He creates problems. And thirdly, keep Valanciunas off the offensive glass. They've done a good job of that in the 4 games in the regular season where Valanciunas wasn't really dominant inside. Right. Jalen Williams was a big factor in their win in New Orleans and just being physical with him. Keep him off the offensive glass. Those keys are my keys to the game on defense.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I love that you brought up Jay Will there at the end, because I think he can also be an inflection point, and it's not to put pressure on a rookie, but whoever's playing that 5 spot for OKC can be an inflection point in this matchup on the other side of the ball as well. We talked to Mark Daignault today, and he said that New Orleans double-team Shea more than any other team in the league, and that's even with a guy like Herb Jones, who's one of the better one-on-one defenders on the perimeter in the entire league. So what that's going to cause, though, is a lot of opportunities for the Thunder to play 4-on-3 on the backside. And that pivot point there is a guy like Jay Will or whoever's setting that screen being that next flex guy, the guy to make the next play, to attack downhill off a drive if everybody's cleared out, or to make the next swing pass. The thing about New Orleans that's really tricky is they have such great length at every single position around the floor. So the space that you have to make those clear next play decisions is really minimized. So that is the thing that I'm looking for here is how quickly can the Thunder make decisions offensively? How quickly can they get the ball out of traps and then move the ball onto the next play and not allow that length that New Orleans has to recover? And if OKC can do that, they can probably get some good looks at the rim and then spray outs for threes.
The beauty of this is that the Thunder now has 4 games worth of pictures that they can go back and look at. That's what Coach Daignault calls film.
Yeah.
So
moving pictures.
Moving pictures. Still real old school here.
Wait a minute. Is Paris not going to give her take here?
You guys covered everything.
Wait,
offense, defense.
You going to do special teams or what?
Come on, you got to break the tie.
Yeah,
here.
we got to make sure we have.
No?
You guys covered it. You guys covered it. Got everything covered. Set up a beautiful matchup between the Pelicans and the Thunder. Like I mentioned, that game is on Wednesday, 8 p.m. Central Time. Only on ESPN, but be sure to tune in OKCThunder.com at OKC Thunder on all social channels. Me and Nick, we've got you covered on all the articles. Walk out as well. We're still rolling. Don't you worry. So we got all your coverage for everything pregame and postgame. Until next time, we'll see you. Thanks so much for watching and listening, Chris.
Nobody does it better than these two.
Thanks
for
so
joining
much
us,
for being
guys.
here.
This is great.
This is why we bring you on. You hype us up a lot. It makes us feel really good. Thanks so much for your time.
And just a reminder, this game against New Orleans, as we said, exclusively on ESPN. So this might be the last Valley Sports Oklahoma game that we have with you this season. Hopefully not. Hopefully there's a first round series in Denver, but just thought it should be known.
But Chris is always ready.
Yeah.
Always ready.
Always ready. Stay ready so you don't have to get ready. That's right. All right. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Be sure to like, rate, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much to our producer, Matt Bishop. And until next time, Thunder up and catch you later.